cycle that takes place every year, and it frustrates the hell out of me.
Look, I think the biggest thing is the AFL have been talking about this for about 20 years. So they've tried to fix it, and we're still talking about it.
Us, 40-year-old plus, we're going to whinge and moan about it, but we'll still watch footy. The 15 to 30-year-olds will leave, and they won't be entertained. And that's my concern for the game.
Coaches have hijacked the game.
If you're worrying about the aesthetic of the game, don't ask a coach. Because the coach wants to win. He doesn't care what it looks like.
If, by definition, the game is too congested because there are too many players around the ball, take players off the field.
I think there is a real opportunity to open the game up with the zoning.
This is not the best version of the game, and the game's going to need some help.
You look at finals. Finals is congested, it's tough, but everyone goes, how good was that final? It is tough in and under football, but for some reason, because it's finals, we love that style of football.
I keep hearing people talking about the heydays when there was 160 versus 150 now. Some of the worst games of footy I've seen have been shootouts.
If we put 6 players on the interchange bench and 16 players on the field and didn't tell anyone, I argue not many people would notice the difference, except they'd say, geez, it feels a bit more open.
They're not criticising the players. They just want the game to be more attractive because it's an entertainment business.
Why do we always have to debate about the game?
Because it's crap footy at the moment.
Because there's nothing else to talk about. That's why.
It's not a terribly subtle point you make, Robbo. So we have ourselves a forum. It's live from Dorcas Street in Melbourne from the studios of Fox Footy with Gerard Whateley and Mark Robinson as we gaze ahead. What does the future hold for our great game? It's the AFL 60 State of the Game Footy Forum. Tonight's players, let me introduce them to you. Spanning 1974 to 1986, he captained Carlton. He is a multiple premiership player. He's the hardest man in the footy media. Mark Maclure, welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.
David King started in 1994. He cheated a couple at the end, but he did get to 2000.
He cheated a few. He went with it. I can't believe he went with that,
David King, welcome.
Go, Gerard.
Nick Riewoldt has one of the great CVs in the decorated history of the game. 2001 to 2017, straight from the game. Nick Riewoldt, welcome.
Thanks, mate. Should have been 18, but that's all right.
Well, you need more cash.
And he was this generation's Robert Flower, Bob Murphy, delighted on a wing and at half-back, and whenever he went forward, he was one of the most versatile players of his era from 2000 to 2017. Bob Murphy, welcome.
Thanks, boys. I feel like a wrestler. I feel like a WWE.
I don't think you look like one.
Opening statements, if you would. So we want to get your position as a starting point so we know whether you're a traditionalist or a free radical, whether it's leave it alone or help it along. Mark Maclure, where do you stand on the way the game is right now?
I'm pretty relaxed about it, actually. We've seen a lot of fads come through from 1970 to now. So they come, they go. But this has been a sustained couple of weeks on just the multitude of people around the ball. Now, how do you stop that at round 6? For mine, that's a very difficult thing, and we have to wait till the end of the year to do something. If you think you can change it now, Robbo, good luck. I don't think you can.
David King?
I love the game, Gerard. I love it how it is now, and I love what the players do. I think they put on an awesome show. They're better than they've ever been. There's no doubt about that. No one's questioning the players. So I reckon you've got to put that to the side. And I think the players have taken offence to this conversation. It's not necessarily about what they can and can't do, because they're doing an awesome job. But I think the challenge is to keep the ball in motion for me. I think that we've got to make sure that the stoppages don't allow players to set this congested sort of mix around the football of 25 to 30 players. And that's the problem for me. If you keep the ball in motion, then the rest will sort itself. I don't want to overly fatigue the players in terms of limiting interchange or anything like that. I want to maintain strategy. I think the strategy is a really important part of our game. So if you just make it all same, we lose what Alistair Clarkson brings to the game. We lose what Nathan Buckley's done this year. We lose what Damien Hardwick did last year. So it's a fine balance for me, maintaining strategy, but making sure the game stays in motion.
Nick Riewoldt?
Philosophically, I'm a bit the same as you. I think the players are as good as they've ever been, but I don't think the teams are as good as they've ever been, and we can get into why. But as a player, last year and throughout my career, I was not a big footy watcher. Maybe 5 games a year tops. We just didn't watch footy at home. So my base for comparison is it's difficult to make that connection. But I watched a lot of footy so far in 2018 for obvious reasons. Probably about 20 to 25 games, and I think I've seen about 5 good ones. So I'm not sure where it should sit as a percentage, but 20% good games feels like a low number for me.
Did that surprise you when you come to that conclusion that you've seen 5 good games in 25?
I went through them all this afternoon, every game that I've called so far or watched on the telly at home. And, yeah, I was a little bit surprised by those figures. But the good ones, the Geelong-Hawthorn type games, they really stood out as a beacon compared to a lot of what I've seen.
Bob, where are you?
I think sometimes, Jared and Robbo, the most courageous thing to say is, I don't know. And in that regard, I don't know. And don't be fooled by these guys with their manila folders. They don't know either. But my thoughts are with a bit like Nick. When you're a player, and I was a player for 18 years, you're in the eye of the storm. And your perspective is not of the game. It's of your clan, your team and where they're at and the fierce competition to win. So at the moment, I'm just listening. I'm surprised by how fierce the conversation's got over a short period of time because I've watched... So this is the first year I would have watched, a bit like Nick, I reckon I would have watched 1 or 2 games a year live over 18 years and this year have watched at least 1 live every weekend. So I'm sort of listening and trying to get a feel for it. I think my gut feel is that it's a bit of a flat patch at the moment and that the game has a pretty good history of correcting itself.
Lee Matthews is a large part of the debate at the moment on 7 and at 3AW, and he rang me today, not name dropping, but Lee Matthews rang me today, Jared. And he asked me... And he's
get the wrong number?
And he was really interested in what the discussion was going to be tonight, and he asked me to ask you 2 players to go back to when your career started. He believes it started changing about 205, 206, where the interchange started to go up and the pressure arrived, the front-end pressure. Can you go back to when you first started and compare the enjoyment, I know you were young, but compare the enjoyment of playing the game then to the demands of playing 217?
Yeah, it was a big change around that period. And I was a flighty half-forward flanker at the time and Nick was a centre half-forward. But it was a change in that period of, in 2005, you could have a personal battle with your defender. It was, OK, you and me for the day, let's see who's better, let's see who can run further. And then all of a sudden in about 06, I remember playing as a half-forward, whereas before I just had, a single matchup, to then all of a sudden running into zones where I didn't have a direct matchup. You were just sort of running into the human battleships. And it was almost like I had to change position because I couldn't play as a smaller sort of, centre half forward at that time. It was a big change.
2004 really stands out for me. I played centre half forward that year and if I had an opponent, I had them for the day, and if they could keep up, great. And if not, you didn't run into any other players. There was no rolling zones. You didn't hand over.
Third up, interceptors?
No, sometimes, but not as often because there was just so much space. And I had a bloke called Fraser Gehrig sitting at full forward. I didn't really go inside 50 that much, all that often. But Fraser kicked 100 goals that year. I kicked 70-odd. Milne kicked 50. 50 now in a team as your highest goal kicker is a great result. So no doubt footy was more enjoyable, and being able to have the Carey Jakovic types battles, we don't see those anymore. And we're poorer for it, I think.
So bringing in 6 and 7 coaches to actually work on the opposition, to nullify everyone else's strengths, has that killed what we really like to watch?
Well, it's a copycat league and it's an arms race. So as soon as one team had the capacity to be able to do it financially, to try and get an advantage, well, then everyone does it.
But we love strategy.
I understand that.
We love innovation. I mean, seeing the rotations go through the roof off the back of what Mick Malthouse did was awesome. Seeing the press come in, change the game forever. Seeing Alistair Clarkson's cluster. I mean, we've talked about things like things of legend.
Yeah, you get role players through that. I think that's the game's not necessarily about, as great as it is to watch Nick take 250 marks and kick 70 goals, those systematic defences allow, someone like a Nick Smith at Sydney to be a superstar because he fits that system of defence. So there's a bit each way.
So, Sellers, the game you played as against the game you commentate, how much of the game you played exists now?
Oh, probably naught. Not a great deal. I think some of the things what Nick talked about and the guys talked about, that one-on-one type stuff was fantastic. And the part about it was that you played for 120 minutes. You didn't get a rest. And you're proud of actually finishing the game at 120 minutes and see if you beat your man, or sometimes you get beaten. I think that has been interesting. And when we talk about reducing the interchange now, they say we'll slow the game down. It's an idle threat for mine. An idle threat from coaches. I wouldn't ask players, current players. These guys haven't watched the game when they played, and the players today don't watch the game. And you can't ask the coaches because they want to keep their job, and you can't ask anyone in the AFL who works in the system because they want to keep theirs too. So it's a very interesting situation. I mean, Jordan said last night, you bring back less interchanges, we'll clog the game up. Well, that's rubbish. Total rubbish, as far as I'm concerned.
His argument was that the coaches, guys, Johnny,
yeah, but you've already clogged it up. So what's the difference?
They'll send players back. You might go back to a bit of flooding defensively.
I think the question is, what's the enemy? What is the enemy? If the enemy is numbers around the football, you work out how you're going to attack that. Is it by pulling numbers out and having zoning, or is it by the other angle, not allowing the game to stop like that as regularly? I mean, I heard you, Jared, talk about the Western Bulldogs and Carlton game last weekend. 27 ball-ups, 32 boundary throw-ins. I mean, if we can find a way for the umpires to be stricter on why those stoppages are happening, then I think there's a large part of your problem solved without radically changing the game and losing a lot of our history. I mean, our game is so unique. As soon as you change it radically, we're in trouble.
This is you said what is the number one issue if you believe we've got an issue. When you look at this footage of all the players around the contest, do you think, which drags everyone in the bubble, the 70-metre bubble, do you think this is how we want the game to be played, or is it the coaches, and Lee Matthews has spoken about this again tomorrow, the coaches are to blame 100% on this football?
The coaches are coaching to play a pressure style of game. That's obvious. And because it's a copycat league, we saw Richmond win a flag doing it last year, so then everyone subscribes to that model. And, I mean, I don't have the answers. This is just me trying to rationalise, but I feel like it's a bit of a perfect storm. I know the players are as good as they've ever been, but the reason I said I don't think the teams are as good as they've ever been is because we've had a real dilution of talent across the competition as well. It's not just the congestion; it's the actual skills. So if you look at what the introduction of the expansion teams have done, GWS and the Gold Coast, if we look at their lists, I went through and graded some of the players. I reckon there's about 16 stars within those two lists. If they went to another club, they'd be absolute stars. I've got Jeremy Finlayson in there, who I've seen a fair bit of this year, and I think he's a genuine star of the competition. He's a great player. Complementary to that, there's also about 30 to 40 players on both of their lists that would either get a game at another club or are a first-round draft pick that would get a game in the next couple of years. So across the competition, that's 3 to 4 players per team, one of them a star, which would be playing. And the other aspect is the recruiting. I'm not sure that we're necessarily recruiting footballers and placing a premium on football talent anymore. If you're a great athlete, I think you're going to get a look in. And I use Kane Lambert as an example of someone that didn't get drafted until he was 22, 23, because he was a good footballer and nothing really stood out about him athletically.
We talk about skills. The athletes can't kick it. They can run, and that's what they want them to do: run back and forward, back and forward, back and forward as coaches. But actually, when you've got to use the ball, it's a very different deal.
I think just on, yeah, sorry, Robbo, but on your question about the cluster of play, and I heard a comment today that it was like Oz kick for grown-ups because all the numbers are in. I think part of the reason why players get defensive, current players get defensive, is because what they hang their head on, where it used to be the one-on-one battles of, Robbie Flower and Dipper out on the wing, whereas in that situation there, it's all those possessions in there are contested, and then it's a battle of wills for whose midfield or whose forwards can run hardest to the open side of the ground. So that's what they put. That's what they put their heart and soul. That's their badge of honour. Where that's what's changed a bit in the game.
Oh, I think the current day players should want to play the best version of the game, and if we need to help them get to that, I think they'd love it. I refuse to accept that players think they can be at their creative best when there's 26 around a circle with a 10-metre radius. It's just not possible.
Unfortunately, Jude, they don't know any better because that's what they've been brought up on.
And so it's not theirs.
No, it's not.
The AFL could give them a better version of the game. So there's three choices. You can make drastic change and alter the course of what we've known and where we're going. You can use the levers that exist within the game to exhaust those first, or you could do nothing. So if we did nothing, where will we go?
I think we need to pump the brakes for a start, because I think we need to be sure before we pull the trigger on anything.
And we have ourselves 4 months. I think the beauty of the conversation starting now is that you've got the whole length of the season to go. Can this resolve itself? Or are we going to get more congested as we go? And you can normalise the conversation. So instead of the really emotional responses now over 4 months, including those on the competition committee and the AFL, you can normalise the conversation. So what if we do nothing?
Yeah, I think we need to give the game an opportunity to evolve, which we've seen it do in the past, but in the interim...
When did it do that in the past? The scoring's been dropping off every year for a decade.
Yeah, well, the game has evolved. But
that's what I'm saying.
Evolved I guess, in a negative sense.
Yeah, so why would we pause? What are we pausing? What are we protecting by pausing?
We're protecting the history of the game as opposed to making drastic change. So to come in and actually alter the fabric of the game, I think we just need to be really, really confident that that's the only way to achieve it. Absolutely, in the meantime, come up with those contingencies.
No, but the question is if we do nothing.
Yeah, so hasn't the fabric of the game already changed?
Yeah, I don't know what the fabric of the game is.
I think you told us.
I'm talking about 18 on the field is the fabric of the game.
The pillars, sorry. Yep.
There's scoring there. Just have a look how it's dried up over the last decade. It is alarming and it is concerning, and ultimately it's the fans' game. I know the players play it, the coaches coach it, we commentate, we do, everyone's got a role, but ultimately the fans got to want to go and watch the game. They've got to want to enjoy it. That cluster of players you keep showing, I challenge anyone in row 30 at the MCG to work out who's playing well when the ball's not leaving that beehive.
Everyone looks like this, King.
Yeah, they've got no idea. And it's hard to know who's had a glut of possessions post-game.
Tell me something. Let me say this to you. The Premiers last year played the most exciting brand of football we've seen for a long time. Keep the ball in the forward line, work it hard. And you know what they are? They don't move it sideways. They are positive with their movement forward all the time.
Really good
Always positive forward. Why do some clubs go back when you've got the opportunity?
Yeah, so I think that's
we
what I
must
sort of
follow.
took from what you were saying about, well, maybe that because it is the copycat of who the leader is. Well, the Tigers are they are the best in the business at the moment.
And they're still doing it.
They are still doing so. Will we have enough?
What are the rest doing?
We'll have enough others follow.
Just don't have them all do it. I think Sydney are their own unique.
They're fantastic. I
And
love
they've
watching
been
them.
consistent for 15 years.
And I like that.
I think strategy has to maintain. I don't think we want everyone doing the same thing. They take components of each other, and that's always happened. But you need strategy.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Zones is a horrible word. We used to call it play in your position. So we're going to call it play in your position rule. Everyone's happy with that. Do you believe the game has to be stretched? Malcolm Blight and Lee Matthews, two legends of the game this week, said, at the very least, 6-6-6 at the centre bounce zone for a goal. I'm in favour of stoppages, key forwards and forwards inside the 50-metre arc to stretch the ground. Are you in favour in any way or see an argument for that, Nick?
I'm not in favour of it. I think we can achieve that via a different path with a less intrusive change to the game, and that's by lowering interchange. And I heard Jordan speak last night about his theory that it will become more congested. I totally disagree. I think players will be forced by lowering the interchange to conserve energy by playing deeper at times. I think games generally open up late because players are fatigued. It's really difficult to apply pressure, that explosive pressure that makes it hard for players to execute simple skills if you're tired.
I think scoring goes up 1 point on average in the last quarter. So that's not a real...
Yeah, but that's now with interchange.
It's not a tangible discussion.
That's 80,
everyone talks about
interchanges.
fatigue being a problem late. It's not. I can tell you it's not right now.
So are you...
But the problem is that they can still run just as fast at the end as they could at the start.
I think we're guessing with that. Okay, I think we're guessing. I mean, Bob's right. How do we know the answer to what that will actually do?
Well, no one knows. Do we know the answer to what happened with? Do we know the answer what was going to happen with 90 changes or 150 changes?
I think we've changed the philosophy, Jared. We made changes along the way, And that's why I think everyone's got confidence in Steve Hocking, because he's saying, what do we want the game to look like at the end? And let's make the decisions that'll take us there along the path, rather than these changes that are just ad hoc.
Sellers, are you on the interchange limit?
Well, I think that you could possibly go back to 10 a quarter. And if you don't use your 10, well, you relinquish your rights to use them in the last quarter. Because some people might save for that, you know, whereas I think the players need to work hard, and it's just a change in training of more endurance than speed.
But they are working hard. They've never worked harder in their life. They're running up and down the ground. This is the issue.
But why
they go like that as a group?
Hey, Robbo, that's why we've got 25 of them in the middle who run around together.
And that's where their issue is. That is the issue.
How do you fix it?
Well, I don't know. I don't. This is the problem. I think it's great that we're having this discussion, because you know what? We're all joking at the start of the show, and suddenly we start talking about the future of the game, and everyone's bang, 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 because we all care where the game's going to be.
So Bob, what's your most logical move?
I get the jitters when I hear about zones and
playing your position rule, Bob.
Playing your position rule. And then taking numbers off the field. That kind of change is nuclear, and I just haven't seen enough of. Like, I'm listening to people like yourselves who've watched the game for a long time and are so alarmed now. Or I thought, oh, here's just the latest. We do this once a year, don't we? That was my initial thought of going, okay, but there's a change in people's voices and the kinds of voices we're hearing. So I'm just going to watch at the moment. I hesitate on the nuclear change.
Yep. So Kingy, what's yours? What's the one thing you would do? Would you use the levers in the game first?
Yeah, I would. I think we've got enough scope for challenge and change at the moment, and I think it comes down to umpiring. I've heard Nathan Buckley on your program today. I've heard Alistair Clarkson. I think we've got to protect the guy that's trying to win the ball. We've done that for 100 years. We want people getting their hands on the contested footy. So let's reward that guy. And if the ball doesn't come out, he's had no prior opportunity. But once it comes out, prior opportunity is gone. Right now, that prior opportunity is gone. That player needs to dispose of the ball legally.
Correctly.
He needs to handball or kick. This is rubbish. That ball falling out like that should be a free kick and the game moves on. We call the ball up and the game stops. As I said, we had 27 ball ups and 32 throw-ins.
Yeah, so
that's
you call the ball up and
I'm happy with that.
Everybody swarms in, you call a free kick and the field spreads. So let me show you, to keep from the same game, half a dozen. Can you live with these instead of being play-ons? Either Bontempelli there or Kennedy here.
Gone.
Being holding the ball. Yep. And that spreads the field. Yep. Daniel there.
Gone.
Holding the ball.
Yep.
Just keep watching them. Keep watching them.
That in the
Dale Thomas again.
No.
The ball spat out.
It was in the 80s.
In the 80s, it was
Absolutely.
like that. In the 80s.
Yeah, I know that.
That's clearly holding.
But everyone argued then that they've got people to get.
Just hang on.
Who
Watch
argued?
them. So that
the
we
coaches
debate it
argued.
properly, and that one falling backwards.
Sorry.
So they're either what we would regard as red hot holding the ball, or their incorrect disposal, and in every instance, their incorrect disposal. So if you wanted to use the levers within the game, just play those once more, is you would pay a free kick on each of those. So instead of having everybody come in, everybody would spread and the ball would move.
And let's err on the side of the free kick. We're erring on the side of how difficult it is for the player. But if it's the same for everyone, that's fine. I really think it's in the umpire's hands and the lawmaker's hands.
But you just argued, Kingy, that we've got to still look after one of the pillars of the game is the guy going in and get the ball.
It's the initial ball winner. I just showed that the initial ball winner. Let's look after him. But once the possession change starts, why do you reset prior opportunity every time? It's a team prior.
You're saying winning the contested footy on the ground, protect him, no worries. But once you've gained possession, you've distributed, it's the next player incumbent upon him to
he has to dispose correctly.
I like it because it doesn't fundamentally change
that's something that Nathan Buckley's talked about, Alistair.
Yeah, so there's a few minds heading this way, and there's a few who are desperately opposed to it because they think all it will do is magnify the tackling. So there's both arguments on that. But that's a lever you could pull within the game and go, what you could actually get, what does this do? Let's have a look at this and see if it resolves any of our issues.
It puts the kilometres back into the football, not the player.
Yeah.
And I think that's a drastic change. It's different to what you were talking about before. The players are taxed. We get that. Let's get the ball moving again. A ball in motion will solve everything.
And it would condition the player as soon as he got it to know, right, I'm hot, I'm in. It's got to immediately go. You have to have a quick sense with you. So I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but it is a lever inside the game.
They will naturally draw wider, though, because if I'm going to give you the ball, Bob, I need you to be in a bit of space. So they will draw It might only be 3 metres, but it's a big difference when you've got a swarm of players.
We're having 6 handballs in 2 metres at the moment. You're getting it, jumped on, hand it off, get it, jump on, hand it off.
You're better off giving it to someone else to get caught. That's what they want to do. They want to hit a target all the time instead of sometimes you need a quick kick that doesn't actually go to a target.
Players are reluctant
That's the key.
to quick kick the ball and kick
That's
the ball
right.
forward.
They stop
because inevitably you're going to be outnumbered and you've got forwards up the ground. So if you know players in congestion are going to be releasing the ball and getting it forward, you're more likely to hold your forwards and play 6 forward.
Correct.
So
the game's never been tougher, has it?
I think we just solved it, boys.
Beautiful. That's what a forum is for, right?
We might have another forum about round 13, round 14.
It's going too well. We've got to
you got nothing to write
What do
about.
we do? Do we send Gil an invoice? Or
Someone told me this was an intervention for you, Rob. That's the only reason I'm here.
Right, we're going to break off into our normal slots next. That's our footy forum on the state of the game. The captain.